Formula One stands for speed. One of the most vital features that logistics companies should possess, especially when delivering life-saving vaccines. Are they ready for this uphill task?
We've been in sort of hypercare preparation mode for the last 2 months now.
What are the opportunities for an ever-expanding logistics market?
The emergence of e-commerce and then business to business.
How does the global economic climate look like?
Trade liberalization is very strong right now.
Meet John PEARSON, CEO of DHL Express. Only on BizTalk, only on CGTN. This is one of the 12 ports of DHL in China. This logistics company is preparing for a very strong peak season, in particular driven by growth in e-commerce. Even during the height of the pandemic, things here were still busy. DHL has continued throughout to ensure the proper functioning of its supply chain and that parcels are delivered to your doorsteps on time. The Pitney Bowes Parcel Shipping Index told us that for the first time ever, the global parcel shipping volume has reached 100 billion in year 2019. That number will more than double and reach a maximum of 260 billion in year 2026. The global economy is still out of the woods as the pandemic rages on. However, the logistics industry, including companies like DHL, have continued to gather momentum. Welcome to this episode of BizTalk. Well, today we zoom in on the logistics industry, the challenges and opportunities at a special time. And joining me now is Mr. John PEARSON, CEO of DHL Express. John, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
John, we start with challenges to the global supply chain during and after the COVID-19. How is DHL coping with that?
Yeah, so first I talk about the supply chain and how we've managed during COVID. I think the most important thing was having enough aviation capacity, and once we were able to secure the capacity that was needed, particularly to give uplift out of Asia and uplift out of China, you can imagine the time when we were moving a lot of PPE equipment. Once we secured the aviation capacity, everything actually worked remarkably smoothly. Despite the fact that we were extremely busy, our low point, if you will, was April. Week 15 was our lowest week, but once May came around, we started becoming very busy again. As I say, business heals and trade is very self-resuscitating. Business picked up around June, July time, and then we're going into our Q4 peak season now. In fact, we're right in the middle of it. And yeah, we're extremely busy, but thanks to the aviation assets that we have, we're handling everything in a very organized manner.
Now, another big challenge during the COVID-19 period is to ensure the safety of your employees and the packages. So what are those anti-coronavirus measures are you taking?
You know, we start everything we do in DHL Express, in DPDHL, with a safety moment. And what I call safety has been split into two different aspects this year. The traditional safety of high visibility vests and protective shoes and goggles and everything else that we require our people to wear in different situations. And then COVID safety, the safety of our people. Because you can imagine 30 to 40% of our people absolutely need to be at work doing what they do, making sure the working environment was safe. We made sure that you know, as much disinfectant and cleansing techniques were in place. But as you can imagine, in an organization that moves over 200 million shipments a year, our focus was on our people, making sure that none of our people were in a position to move the virus onto our packages. And that's how we manage.
The world is preparing for COVID-19 vaccine logistics. Market research from McKinsey estimates that vaccine manufacturers could produce as much as 10 billion doses by the end of 2021. And for that, this is what it takes. According to DHL's white paper, some 200,000 movements by pallet shippers on 15,000 flights and also 15 million deliveries in cooling boxes may be needed. In this stringent logistics scenario with extreme temperature requirements, all preparations should be made in time. DHL's feasibility of vaccine logistics shows that to distribute vaccines freely worldwide, our work has not finished. Aside from logistics,
dry ice production capacity, even the speed of customs clearance might damage the medicines.
Now, with the world is now hoping for a COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible, what are you doing as a logistics firm planning to ensure the supply of those vaccines once they are ready?
We've been in sort of hypercare preparation mode for the last 2 months now. We have a network that can deliver to all over the world, and we deliver to 220 countries, and that'll be the same as the vaccines start to get distributed. Significantly, there needs to be an active logger on the package itself to demonstrate that the package maintained the right temperature through its journey. Significantly, we need to make sure we have all the dangerous goods licenses and permits in respect of dry ice. And the rest really is right in our wheelhouse. This is a time-definite international shipment from a few manufacturing origins all around the world to a multiple number of destinations. And because our transit times are typically between 1 and 4 days, certainly the Pfizer packaging manages to keep the vaccines at the right temperature for 10 days, as I say, and that's why I make the point that this is right in the center of everything we do, because our transit times really move between 1 and 5 days. So there's even a little bit of a buffer after our normal transit time delivery.
Now, John, given all those uncertainties, we have the pandemic still lingering, and then we have uncertainty in global trade. So what is your take on the outlook of the global express delivery market, let's say in the coming 5 years or longer?
Yeah, well, I think we're very positive on that, and I'll give you a number of reasons. I think there's a natural pent-up demand during the pandemic year. People haven't been able to run as fast as they have. They've run incredibly well, having said that, but there's a natural pent-up demand as we get into the early part of New Year. Spring comes around, the vaccine distribution should be in place. People, and a great barometer for this, people generally want to catch up with what they lost in the year before. Secondly, I would say that trade liberalization is very strong right now. There's a lot of policy and trade policy documents being written and signed that allow countries and encourage countries to create bilateral trade and multilateral trade. And I think there's a general tone of openness and accessibility to trade as we go into next year. So I'm very positive in that sense. And then underscoring all of that is the fact that e-commerce, both B2C, traditional e-commerce, and B2B online is growing faster than it ever has done. And the pandemic has only really accelerated that. And the phrase, you may have heard it yourself, the phrase of sort of 3 to 4 years growth in 3 to 4 months. That's exactly what we've been seeing as a real accelerant to the e-commerce activity, the cross-border international time-definite activity.
Consumer buying behavior and expectations have changed with the rise of e-commerce, and this pandemic has further accelerated this process. In the U.S., Black Friday hit a record $7.4 billion in online sales. As for China, e-commerce giant Alibaba and JD also set new records with more than $100 billion in sales on Singles' Day. And this momentum has directly pushed the demand for logistics and freight sector dramatically. The Deutsche Post DHL Group reports significant gains in Q3, and this is the second consecutive quarter of this year to achieve such solid results. Further, for the full year, the logistics company recently raised the 2020 EBIT guidance from the previous highest estimation of 3.8 billion euros to 4.4 billion euros. This is compared to the operating profit of 4.13 billion euros recorded in the prior year. The company said that this confidence comes from its strong position in e-commerce.
As you said, John, I totally agree. People are now shopping online like never before. That is partly due to the pandemic. And also, as you mentioned, B2B e-commerce is also on the boom. So what have you experienced in e-commerce shipment volume in terms of your financial results? And what do you expect from this upcoming holiday season, especially the coming Chinese New Year?
So e-commerce shipments contribute about, just over 40% of our network this year. That was higher than last year, bearing in mind the growth that we've experienced. we're now going into our peak season. We've already had 2 or 3 days that were bigger than Black Friday last year. The whole organization is focused on one thing right now, which is delivering a great peak season for our customers. So we generally accept that Black Friday heralds the start of the peak season, although because of the particular circumstances surrounding the pandemic, we've really been in peak season since September 1. And we have enough aviation lift, and our origin and our destination centers are absolutely ready for the volume.
Now, we have seen omni-channel retail demands and also changing customer expectations. How is DHL coping with all that?
We're ready for any omni-channel strategies and tactics that retailers are developing, and they absolutely are recognizing that. I think the last 6 months has accelerated their own strategic plans. Typically, when organizations or merchants might have said that we've not got IT funds to put into that, right now they're absolutely prioritizing those IT investments to put into their e-commerce strategy, to double down on omni-channel sales platforms. And our network is ready for any which way that e-commerce volumes come to us.
Coming up next, big data, the Internet of Things. These are the buzzwords. But what kind of opportunities can new technology bring to logistics companies?
To become more efficient, to give more shipment visibility to our customers.
Another challenge for the logistics industry is sustainability. What's their answer?
And then allows bikes to disperse that material into the heart of the financial district, into the heart of the CBD there.
.360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. Biz Talk, only on CGTN.
To cope with unprecedented holiday season rush, hiring for logistics companies skyrocketed in November. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in November, delivery, warehousing, and trucking operators added more than 130,000 jobs in the United States. Staffing is just one aspect. Even as parcel volumes continue to rise, carriers are also racing to invest heavily into technological improvements to achieve efficient utilization of their networks.
Welcome back to Biz Talk. We're talking with John Pearson, CEO of DHL Express. Let's talk about the role of technology in the logistics industry. What role is it playing, and what are the future trends of this industry on the back of booming modern high techs?
In our network is encouraged to put digitalization ideas into our Campfire portal. We assess them as to whether they're fit for our network, whether they can be rolled out across the network, and then things are deployed in that manner. So we're investing heavily in digitalization. A great example is our partnership with Ehang in China, where our drone deliveries Donghuan were trialed and tested last year. So coming back to that topic of e-commerce, last mile preferences in terms of deliver to neighbor, leave in safe place, leave at pharmacy, leave in pack station. That's something that really drives the efficiency of e-commerce. And also visibility, a little bit like ODD, visibility to the ultimate consumer in terms of follow my courier, so people can understand when the courier will be arriving at the house. And then that's just to mention a few in terms of automated machinery in warehouses, and we're heavily invested in optimizing that across every facility. And I think the thing with digitalization is digitalization has a benefit for our employees, it has a benefit for our customer, and it has a benefit for operational efficiency, and sometimes in all three cases. So it's not just about saving money.
And speaking of future trends, what do you think big data and the Internet of Things means to this industry?
I think, yeah, those are the buzzwords, but it's the reality of how technology presents opportunities to us to become more efficient, to give more shipment visibility to our customers. A good example is the technology that we put on the side of our packages that are moving vaccines in terms of active loggers, and how that data is transmitted back to our central offices to ensure that the temperature of that particular package has been maintained. Example in supply chain and in warehouses where wearable technologies allow us to measure the way in which people pick up packages, the way people handle things, to reduce injury and improve safety. So, and in terms of big data, obviously big data for us, given the number of transactions that we move, is very valuable in terms of forecasting movements between hubs. It's used in terms of forecasting the route optimization tool that I spoke about earlier. So, you know, like many organizations, we're getting the data analytic opportunities, the particular aspects of the Internet of Things, and using them all for efficiency, for employee benefit, or for customer service benefit.
Rapid growth in the e-commerce market could intensify competition among logistics solution providers. Value-added services are expected by customers, which in turn pushes carriers to reshape their delivery model. That is where the last-mile delivery solution comes in, and this solution also touches upon another important objective: sustainability. We can finish a cup of coffee in only half an hour, but it takes 50 years for the Earth to digest the coffee cups. The logistics industry is already on the way to make packaging more sustainable by using alternative materials or improving pick-and-pack operations, and so are we.
Let's touch a bit upon your last-mile delivery solution. I heard something interesting happening, especially in urban areas in Europe, with your green last-mile practices in London. Tell me a bit more about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on making the last mile as sustainable as it can possibly be, whether that's electric vehicles, or hydrogen vehicles, or bicycles. A lot of routes now, definitely CBD and inner city routes, are done with cubicycles and normal bicycles. And then you mentioned there the most recent one, which is fascinating because I live in that part of London, the Thames boat delivery, which takes material from our service centre, basically outside of Heathrow, right up to the inner city of London, and then allows bikes to disperse that material into the heart of the financial district, into the heart of the CBD there. So very efficient in terms of time and efficiency in operations, and very efficiency from a last mile point of view. So I think it's a case of, obviously with more modern aircraft, we're continuing to drive the carbon emissions and so on and so forth. But I think in terms of lighting in buildings, last mile delivery, reusing water, it's a case of every little helps. And every single service center in our network of 220 countries follows a quite an organized structure in terms of reducing emissions and being as green and sensitive to the environment as possible.
You were talking about the means of transport that you're getting creative to be sustainable in doing business. What are the other ways can express delivery industries get creative in achieving sustainability goals? For instance, I don't know, about packaging, maybe taping.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, on top of the things that I just mentioned there, as I say, the big driver is continuing to get more and more efficient aviation. There's a lot of discussion about synthetic and sustainable fuel right in the heart of that, and understanding what options there are there and how we can contribute in that sense as well. But then in terms of packaging is a great example. We launched last year a more sustainable and recycled form of packaging. It's always a balance of making sure the packaging is protective to our goods in terms of water and everything else, but making sure that we have the right technical components, including color and everything else, to do as much as we can in that area. So it's right across the spectrum, and it's very high on our agenda.
Where are we at on the road to global economic recovery?
Globally, trade is only just a little pip below where it was last year.
How important is connectedness for companies and for us?
When trade stops, war starts. The more open and connected the world is, the better it is for everyone.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back to Biz Talk. China is set to become the world's largest express delivery market. Growing cross-border e-commerce is prompting Chinese delivery companies to set up global networks. In addition, couriers are embracing the arrival of new technologies and adopting multi-module transport. What are international delivery firms in China doing to keep up? John PEARSON is the CEO of DHL Express. I'm just wondering, John, personally, what is your expectation of the upcoming Chinese Lunar New Year this year? Do you expect to see a boom in your business shipping products from out of China?
I know my wife has bought things from Chinese businesses. The next inflection point that I even want to consider is not till after Chinese New Year. So as we come out of our summer this year and we go into our busy period of September onwards, we get to Black Friday. I don't want anyone imagining that there will be a slowdown in January or February. In my view, the volumes will remain very strong right up to and including Chinese New Year. And quite frankly, for the rest of next year, I think the e-commerce story has longevity. It's very enduring. It's fascinating to know that globally trade is only just a little pip below where it was last year. So you can see to what extent it's recovered already. And I know the PMI, the Purchasing Manager Indices in China, is very positive, and China will report year-on-year growth by the end of the year. And the factories are absolutely at full tilt and pumping at full capacity there in China. So I'm optimistic about how we go into New Year. I'm optimistic about Chinese New Year, and that we won't see any slowdown until then.
China remains the strongest player on the global parcel market. According to Pitney Bowes Parcel Shipping Index, China, the US, Japan account for 84% of global parcel volume in 2019. China alone accounts for more than 60%, with 63 billion parcels, more than 4 times that of the United States. China, as a manufacturing powerhouse, generates more than 3 of every 5 parcels shipped in the world's major markets. This further extends China's global lead in parcel volume.
So one thing is that China's 5G construction actually gathers speed and actually is in a leading position across the world. Is this going to set the bar for DHL's future strategy in China? That means closely combined with cutting-edge technologies and using very creative new techs in the Chinese market in your businesses.
Today in China, and thinking about our Chinese team, there is an extremely developed infrastructure there for making sure that we hear about new technological developments and using them. And as I say, the drone is one such example of that, but there are others. And I think, what we thought with drone deliveries just 2 or 3 years ago would be used in military and geographical surveying is something that is really on our doorstep for sort of amplification and further use. And I think with digitalization, what you can develop now in the space of 6 months or a year is what you could develop in a decade before. So it's very exciting in terms of using China as a breeding ground and a concept ground for these technologies, and making sure, as part of our own digitalization strategy, that these things are populated into our network wherever it is possible.
2020 has been an extraordinary year. Some people think that everything has changed and the pandemic could mark the end of globalization. But in fact, no. Looking around, we see people, companies, and countries continue to connect and do business with each other. Your parcels arrive at your doorstep just in time. We still can keep on learning, working, or staying in touch with our loved ones. And behind this high level of continuity is the power of global connectedness. The DHL Global Connectedness Index 2020 shows that the virus-induced decline in international connectedness is unlikely to drop below levels seen during the global financial crisis.
The logistics industry is really based on the flow of goods. So how do you think can global connectedness make the world stable and less vulnerable in the current crisis?
Well, connectedness, openness, trade, call it what you will, has been providing, a strong suite of benefits for centuries and centuries, since people started moving coffee and spices and steel with the Industrial Revolution, now to every aspect of global trade that we hear about on the news as we open the newspaper every morning. That trade, that openness, that connectedness allows countries to pay their frontline workers more. It allows for social harmony. I think it was Jack Ma that said, when trade stops, war starts. It sounds dramatic, but it's fine for me to think about it in that way, because the more open and connected the world is, the better it is for everyone. And the comparison I'll give you there is that after the global financial crisis, it was sort of 13 months until people got back to where they were before. And here we are, sort of 4, 5, 6, depending on which part of the world you talk about, basically being back at where they were before the crisis. And I think there's a lot to be positive about. There's a lot to be optimistic about. And one thing I do know for sure is that countries that were more open and more connected had more optionality in terms of their manufacturing sites, their distribution sites, tended to fare better during the last 6 months than those that were one country only.
So you would not agree to the point of view that some nations might start considering moving from international to domestic manufacturing?
No, no, absolutely not. I think there will be some refinements and some rethinking of supply chain around the edge. I think that'll all happen within the global framework of global supply chains. Some organizations will think about moving some highly critical, highly sensitive parts closer to home, but supply chains have been built on two things, and let me be clear about this: efficiency and economics. And those two things have meant that those supply chains for the last decade or two have been amazingly robust and amazingly resilient and efficient. In fact, so much so that they've been assumed and not even tested. So when something came along like the ash cloud, it got everyone's attention, but we reverted back to norm after that. And our feeling is that whilst there will be some refinements and some finessing around the edge of people's product classification and what they keep and where they manufacture, the way in which supply chains operate is very well established, and my own personal view is I expect it to continue.
All right, great stuff. Thank you so much, John, for your time. And I was speaking to Mr. John PEARSON, CEO of DHL Express, on what DHL is doing to keep the global supply chain afloat at this challenging time, and what sort of tech-savvy solutions are used to meet customer demands and sustainability goals. This is BizTalk, and I'm Lily Lu. Until next time, bye for now.